Let's look at Unit 4 of Exploring Government. This is a good example of how thoroughly and practically the curriculum covers the subject. Unit 4 is the first of 2 units on the U.S. Congress. Over this and the next few units, the student reads the entire United States Constitution, which is found in We Hold These Truths. The lessons lead the student in a study of the various sections of the Constitution. We spend 2 units on Congress because the Constitution treats it as the most important part of the federal government. The introductory material at the beginning of each unit gives a brief survey of the topics that the unit discusses, the books that the student will need for the unit, and gives options for a project to be completed by the end of the unit. Students can choose one of the writing options or one of the options for another kind of creative activity. Lesson 16 teaches about serving in the U.S. House of Representatives. We discuss why the United States has 2 houses of Congress, the House and the Senate. We tell who can serve in the House and who can vote for House members. We describe how the seats in the House are apportioned among the states and how that changes after each 10-year census. We explain the different ways that the redistricting process works in the states and discuss some of the more controversial examples that have occurred in recent years. After this lesson, the student reads a portion of a Supreme Court decision about how states are to draw its congressional district lines so that each citizen is represented fairly. The assignments also remind the students to continue reading Mornings on Horseback, working on the unit project, and answering review questions in the student review book. Lesson 17 continues our focus on Congress by examining the U.S. Senate. Today in We Hold These Truths, students read letters to and from the first woman elected to the U.S. Senate in the 1930s. The student continues to read Mornings on Horseback, to work on the unit project, and answers questions on today's lesson. Lesson 18 begins our discussion of how the U.S. Congress works. We also explain the congressional record, C-SPAN, and the salaries and expense accounts that members receive. You might be surprised. We also describe what the Constitution permits members of Congress to do and what it forbids them to do. The assignments for this lesson include reading Mornings on Horseback, working on the unit project, and answering questions in the student review. The title of Lesson 19 is Who They Are and What They Do. What is the average age of a member of the House and of the Senate? How many are men and how many are women? What are their ethnic backgrounds? What are their religious affiliations? We also discuss the typical length of service for a member of Congress and the pros and cons of term limits. Members of Congress and their staffs do much more than debate proposed laws on the floor of each chamber, like helping folks back home who are dealing with federal agencies. So we discuss these duties in detail. The original document in We Hold These Truths for this lesson is a recollection by Henry Adams, grandson of President John Quincy Adams, telling of a time when he was 12 years old and his father took Henry with him onto the floor of the Senate chamber. It's a fascinating perspective. Again, the list of assignments reminds students to read Mornings on Horseback, work on the unit project, and answer review questions. The final lesson of Unit 4 deals with 2 realities that the Constitution does not touch upon, but that dominate the workings of Congress today, namely, political parties and committee organization. Who is chosen as Speaker of the House and President of the Senate? How do the 2 houses of Congress organize committees to conduct investigations and consider the bills that members introduce in those chambers? We explain that and tell how the committees work. In the next unit, we'll follow up by explaining the process of how a bill becomes law. The original document in We Hold These Truths is a section of Woodrow Wilson's book on congressional government. Wilson is the only U.S. president so far who has earned a doctoral degree. His field was political science, so he had a great interest in how government should work and how it does work. The other assignments in this lesson include completing the unit project, finishing Mornings on Horseback, reading the literary analysis of that book in the student review, and answering questions on the book. The student also answers questions on Lesson 20 and takes a brief quiz on this unit.